Yo, what's going on everybody? Chadley here, and in today's Cyberpunk video, I'm going to be teaching you guys 10 things that I wish I knew at the start of my journey through Cyberpunk. If you guys follow these 10 tips, you will have a much easier time going through Night City and just overall having a much better experience with the game as a whole. A lot of these tips that I have for you guys are kind of connected, so if you do follow all of them, they're only going to help each other out even more. So I definitely recommend just taking into account these tips. Right now, I have about a day's playtime in Cyberpunk, and I'm just short of level 25 at the moment. I got 43 street cred for the game, but I definitely learned some things that have helped me along the way. So I just want to share those with you guys, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into those tips. Now, the very first thing you guys need to know before you even start playing Cyberpunk is about the skill trees. So with our skill trees, we have attribute points and perk points. So the attribute points go into these skills that you see here, and that will unlock certain perk points within these skill trees inside of that category. So the attribute points, you cannot respec these. Once you put a point into there, it is locked into that spot for the rest of your playthrough. You'd have to make a new character to do so. And then the perk points inside of it, you can respec these, but it costs $100,000. And that is pretty pricey in terms of the game. Maybe later on in the game, it won't be that hard to get $100,000. But for the time being, it does take a while to get up there. It's definitely going to cost you several hours of your life. So yes, definitely make sure you go through, look at each skill tree, decide what you want to be focusing on, and then pick secondary attributes to focus on that will complement your main focus, because really you don't have that many skill points. We go up to level 50 in Cyberpunk, so you're gonna have to make do with that, and I highly recommend you plan out your entire build before you even start. There's really nothing bad you can pick, so just go through, see what looks the most fun to you, and then focus on that. And then, like I said, just pick complements for that main skill you want to be focusing on. So just for example, I am kind of focusing on stealth handguns. So right here, reflexes is my highest, and then I have most of my skill points here into handguns. This is overall helping my damage a ton. And then I have a little bit into sneak, and that's going to complement the handgun. And then next, I am focusing on my technical ability, which is actually going to lead us into our second tip of this video. Really consider this technical ability skill tree. So in the attribute technical ability, we get crafting and engineering. If you guys want to do tech weapons or grenades and things like that, engineering is going to be the tree for you. Otherwise, you're mainly going to be here for crafting. I think crafting is one of the most important parts about Cyberpunk, because to be able to craft some of the higher tier weapons, you need skill points here into crafting. So to be able to craft a legendary blueprint, you need to have level 18 in the technical ability and then have this skill unlocked in the crafting skill tree. So this is incredibly important, and I highly recommend, basically no matter what kind of build you're doing, you do put some sort of focus into this crafting skill tree. Now on to tip number 3, and that's going to revolve around crafting and upgrading. Do not be afraid to craft things and upgrade them. Like I said, you do need to be spec'd into that tree to be able to craft like these legendary items or these epic items, things like that. But overall, crafting is going to be the way to go. So if we take a look at this item right here, we can see when we craft it, it gets a random stat. So crit chance, crit damage, bleeding chance, etc. So this is the same case with finding it in the world. It all is going to have these random rolls, and it's much easier to craft an item until you get the perfect one that you want, instead of trying to randomly find it throughout the world. Also, on top of that, we have the random damage type as well with it. So it's definitely something that you need to be taking advantage of, because there's so much randomness that goes into these weapons. Also, in terms of upgrading, it's definitely going to help out your damage quite a bit. Just for example, on this green revolver that I have, our DPS goes up about 6 points, and it was going up a little bit higher when I was doing the blue one as well. As you can see, this one goes up about 8 points right here. And overall, this is definitely going to help out your damage, and as long as you have components, it's just a super easy way to boost it. All right, guys, so for tip number 4, and that is loot everything you see. Now, I've played a lot of Skyrim and Fallout in my time, and there is stealing in that game. That is not the case here in Cyberpunk. You can walk up to any item that you want and just take it. There's going to be no repercussions for it. And then also when you're at the end of an engagement, like this fight that I was in here, all you got to do is just go up and pick up all the weapons. These are going to be super useful for gaining money and also the upgrade components, because Upgrading and crafting items is definitely a little bit pricey in terms of resources, so make sure you are picking things up constantly and dismantling them. Now for tip number 5, this comes after you have looted everything that you can find and say you're full on carry capacity or whatever, you need to get rid of some stuff. So what I do is I normally have a threshold for the value of the item, and that will decide whether I dismantle the item or sell it. So right now, usually if something's over $500, I will sell it. Unless I really need some upgrade parts, then I'll still dismantle it. But otherwise, right around that $500 mark is where I've been selling and dismantling. So if it's below that, I'm going to dismantle and get the upgrade parts, and I highly, highly recommend you guys do the same. Now for tip number 6, this is very important because I do not want you guys wasting these. Do not really use your weapon mods, at least early in the game. So your weapon and armor mods, you cannot unslot these. So if I try to take this off, as we can see at the top, it's going to say action blocked. I cannot take these off. The only way you can take these off, and why I said the crafting is so important, if we go ahead and take a look at our technical abilities, and then here in the crafting skill tree, we have the skill over here that allows us to get the attached mods back when we disassemble an item. This is going to be the only way you can do that. So that is why I really do not want you guys wasting your mods. Some of them are pretty hard to get your hands on, and actually they really help with your builds. They can be huge in terms of like crit chance, crit damage, things like that. So make sure you are not wasting them. Unless you have this skill, then you can be a little bit more liberal with how you are using them. And now for tip number 7, this one is really going to help you guys out in terms of getting XP and money, and definitely is a nice little break from the main story where there is a lot of dialogue and not really a lot of action. You guys need to make sure you are doing these NCPD missions that are scattered around the map, so that we have the suspected organized crime activities, reported crimes, all these types of things. They'll all just be these light blue colors. You guys need to be doing these. I did these a lot the other day, and my levels just skyrocketed. I think I gained like 4 levels in a very short amount of time just doing these. And also, obviously, all my skills are getting ranked up as I'm fighting a lot of enemies when I do this. So just go around, pick an area on the map where you have a lot of them in a short kind of span of space, and just run from one to one and keep completing them. Not only are these missions really good for XP and stuff, you can find really good items out of this. I have found several legendary blueprints just doing these little side missions. So this is going to be really helpful later on once you can craft better items as well. And just as a little bonus tip for these, a lot of these missions seem to have a little area in their zone that there is a lot of items to loot. So make sure you guys are looking around in the crime areas and looking for those spots. Moving down the list at tip number 8, that is going to be scan and learn what the enemy weaknesses are. So if we go ahead and pull up our scanner, we can see that this enemy is weak to fire damage, but will resist the corrosive and shock damage. So this is something that you're going to need to learn. This is really going to help out your damage. As we can see, we're going to get 30% extra when we're using that type of weapon. So for me personally, what I actually end up doing is I really like this revolver. This is kind of like my main weapon in this build. I have one that happens to be physical damage right now. If I had a thermal damage one that was kind of stronger, I would definitely be using that in this place. And then also I have an electrical damage one because this seems to be the go-to damage for like robots and things like that. Thermal and electric have definitely been my main 2 elements that I've been using on my weapons and have really helped me hit huge damage numbers. So I've swapped over to a thermal revolver just to see what kind of damage numbers we can hit. And right there we hit 48,000 damage. And then if I could hit them, we'd hit even more. But you guys get the idea. You can hit absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage when using the correct elements. Just make sure you are scanning and learning them. Now, tip number 9 is going to make your life way easier in terms of just getting around the map. And also for certain engagements, it also really helps because you can pick your angles a lot better. And that is getting the double jump leg cyberware from the Ripper docks. So if we take a look at these options, we have the double jump one with the reinforced tendons, and then also fortified ankles. I really like reinforced tendons better. I think this is just much easier to use. Also, you can use it for getting down off of buildings and things like that. You can negate some fall damage using this if you time your jump properly. And this one's a little bit harder to use. You jump slightly higher when using fortified ankles, so it's completely up to you, but I personally really like double jump. It just is overall super, super useful. So say this wall right here was an area I needed to get into to do a certain mission and fight some enemies. Normally I'd have to run all the way around and find a different way in, but with the double jump, I can just go ahead and jump right up here, and then maybe all the enemies are over there, and I have a super easy time taking them all out. So that's why you really need to get to this double jump as soon as you possibly can. It's gonna cost $45,000, which is a fairly decent amount of money, but once you guys get it, it's going to make your life so much better. Now, finally, for tip number 10, you guys need to be checking your vendors. So there are gun vendors, melee vendors, and clothing vendors, and obviously we have the Ripper docks as well. One area I really like to go for this is kind of this southwest side of the map here in Pacifica. Down here, we have all of the shops really, really close to each other. So this is just one area I like to go. But we can check the weapon shops, the melee shops, and the clothing shops, because these vendors definitely seem to be slightly random to me. I've had several people say that they found like blue silencers from these vendors. I haven't seen a blue silencer yet, so it definitely feels like it's going to be slightly random. Also, the weapons that they have seem to kind of vary from time to time, so definitely make sure you are checking back often. And one of the most important parts about the vendors, in my opinion, is the blueprints. We can buy blueprints from here for super, super cheap. So if you guys are spec'd into the crafting route, like I suggested earlier, this is gonna make your life much easier and much easier to get your hands on these certain items. So for another example here, looking at the clothing vendor, we can buy a purple helmet blueprint, which is really cool. And also I have seen blueprints for different mods as well. So if you guys need a specific mod, like say just one that increases your damage, that is going to be really nice to find in a vendor. So that's why I definitely recommend that you guys are checking vendors all the time. But yeah, guys, that's all of our 10 tips to help you guys on your journey through Night City here in Cyberpunk. I seriously believe you guys follow these 10 tips, it will make your life so much easier. You'll have just a much better experience as a whole through Cyberpunk, and I definitely recommend taking them into account as you do your playthroughs. If you guys did find this helpful, make sure you leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. It really helps me out, especially since we're just starting our Cyberpunk journey here on the channel. So if you guys do want to see more, make sure you leave a like and also consider subscribing for more Cyberpunk content. Also, we stream basically every single night around 8 p.m. Eastern time, so hopefully I'll see you guys over there on Twitch. But I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya!